Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here with the one and only Harley Cantrell with PandaMomo. Brother, great to have you on, man. I'm excited to share your story with the world. Go ahead and tell everybody who you are and what you're about.
Okay, well, I've got my start a long time ago in grocery. About 20 plus year veteran in grocery. Just kind of got my start up doing that. Always had a passion for food. I got a chance to work with two really phenomenal companies, which was fantastic. Really kind of cut my teeth. But it's really interesting how you kind of learn about why things happen the way that they end up happening. And the whole while always had a passion for cooking, but that just kind of laid dormant and kind of grew the longer I got into grocery. Mm-hmm. And the cool part about it was had an opportunity to take a leap and you know what? Okay, I'm going to exit this career and chase after something that I think I can build off of. And slowly started it quietly and had a couple buddies, and yourself included, just kind of started doing meal prepping for some guys, and it grew and it grew. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this chance and really kind of jump in with both feet. And it's just, PandaMomo's just really taken off. It's been fantastic.
It's awesome, man. I do love your food. I'm excited to try the new recipes you got coming out and everything, man. I really appreciate that. So PandaMomo, what does that mean?
so yeah, that's really funny too. A lot of people, they think they're like, oh, okay, PandaMomo, and like, do you sell stuffed animals? What do you cook only Asian food? What is it that you do? Well, PandaMomo, just kind of give a little bit of insight. So I have twin girls, and when I was coming up with a name, I didn't want it to be, Harley's Cooking or something kind of cheesy like that. And one of my twins' nicknames is Panda Bear, and my other twin's nickname is Momo. So I was kind of playing with some names. I'm like, what about PandaMomo? I'm like, it's got some heart. My daughters have been cooking with me, ever since they've been 2 years old. And so they're little chefs as well. One of them wants to go to culinary school, and I'm very, very excited about that. The other twin loves to cook side by side. So what more heartfelt name for a business than, something that's named after your own family and your twins, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they love it too, because they love talking to their friends, and when they see the shirts and the gear and all that stuff, they're like, that's our nicknames.
Mm-hmm. So see the website, see the branding and everything. And like, Dad loves us this much. His company, his business is named based on us.
Yeah.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
So single father.
Yeah.
Yes. Right, longer than I've known you.
Yeah.
Walk me through what that's like raising two girls, and those relationships. Obviously they mean the world to you, just knowing you, and even the business name and everything. Walk me through what that felt like.
Yeah, it's I'm of a very unique situation, Rich, that like I have my ex-wife really is one of my best friends. She's been phenomenal. So I have a really great co-parenting relationship, and I think that that's made the transition so much smoother with everybody. And she's been a great support system. It's really been interesting going through that and kind of having to kind of start all over again, in a lot of ways, and starting over again in a multitude of ways. I lost my father about a year ago, and going through that and all the different dark realms that you kind of get into, and then jumping into this new business has been something that's been scary, because I had been in grocery my entire career. That was what I knew, and that's what I really identified as. And kind of taking the leap into the unknown is a scary spot, especially if it's something you've never done. You have to take a calculated gamble. And I was like, okay, well, where's my passion at? And I'm 45 now, and I was saying to myself that if I wanted to take a gamble on myself, I needed to do it now versus, 15, 20 years down the line, say, hey, I had a window, but I, just let me get into my own head, and I never took a chance to really go for it.
We see that a lot in the world where like people don't really sing their own song, right? They go to the grave with the songs unwritten, right? And I love that you're singing your song and saying, you know what, I have one shot. Let me go all in. I know everything about grocery. I love to cook. Let me do this. So what was your favorite part about cooking? How'd you get into cooking?
So, it's so funny. I was just talking about this with my twins the other day, and, my father did pass, but I think that he was really the one that kind of got me way back in the day. I remember him letting me spread onions like on the briquettes, like when they turned right. And I always thought that was so cool. But then my mom got me into cooking, my dad, and I just always loved the creation aspect of it. And part of me really loves seeing people's responses, you know, when they eat the food. And I'm very much a firm believer in food is love. So if I'm cooking for you, that's my biggest way of showing how much I care about you. And, you know, I grew up, I was a personal trainer, doing fitness, nutrition, all these different things. And the food element is another way, because my meal preps and the way that I cook for people is very clean. And I want to pass that along to people. You know, there's nothing better than people that are wanting to get goals. I have a lot of athletes that I work with. And when they're telling me, hey, dude, I lost 10 pounds, I lost 15 pounds using your meals, and it's just a huge help, that gets me excited, man. It's like when we talk about like purpose in life and, you know, leaving a mark and being able to kind of like add value to the world, this is one of my little hugs to a greater audience. And that's one of the things that I just love doing that, man. It's like the creation aspect of it.
Yeah, I know from when I was using your meal plans and everything like that, I was a bit overweight, and I was like, hey man, well, I still want to keep my muscle. Here's what I'm planning on doing. You're like, hey Rich, I'm going to tailor something to you. You try this out. Let me know what you think. We started doing the extra protein. We started limiting out on the rice, and like you would really tailor it to what I requested. And I thought that was phenomenal. And it was better than those, you know, I'm not going to plug any other online food source or anything like that, but I still have some in the freezer that I just, for a rainy day, if I need something, I'll go back to it. But they've been in there for so long, I wouldn't even eat it. Yours, I couldn't even, I'd have to really pace myself because it tasted so good. I was like, well, man, if I want to get stronger, I'm going to eat a couple of these today, you know? Nice. You were doing my lunches and my dinners for me. And that was one thing that really drew me to you, was not only your passion and energy that I could hear through the phone messaging, like, hey Rich, what do you think about this? I'm going to try this. But your love language of cooking and showing up for people, I think it really stands out.
Thank you.
And I'm curious, like, was your mom and dad like that too? Like, hey son, we got you this, we did this for you, like, thanks for helping, but here's what we do for a family?
Yeah, it was really weird, like kind of growing on up, you know, just like most kids in the 80s, you know, you got both parents that are working, and the family really, like the food was really a big thing, you know, like most families. But I remember my dad always welcoming in like my football buddies or like friends, like just coming over. My friends would find out that my dad was barbecuing, and they would all just swarm over. And all of a sudden my dad's like, all right, just let them come on over. But it's like, you know, all of a sudden you got like 15, 20 kids. You know,
all the bikes in the front yard.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Exactly. And, you know, just, they were always really supportive of, you know, even up until my dad died, like one of the last things they ended up saying was just, you know, I'm really proud of you going for this. Yeah. That's one of the things I'll forever remember. And my mom passed away about 7 years ago almost now. And she was just, I always like to say she was kind of like the mama clump, you know what I mean? Everything was just like, you know, Hercules, you know, kind of thing. That was my mom. But they were always supportive in their own ways and stuff. But, you know, we all battled challenges and different things like that. And it's that those struggles and challenges that make you see how much of a fighter you got, you know, in you, which is true.
So you've lost both parents inside 8 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And having close relationships, man. What was that like? You know, you have 2 beautiful daughters.
Oh yeah.
You have the business now and everything. Like, walking through that couldn't be easy.
No, and there's, you know, and it's so funny because I talk to people and they end up saying stuff like, dude, that's so great, you're chasing your dreams, this must be so much fun. I'm like, yes, there definitely is a lot of fun, there's a lot of excitement, but there's also a lot, and I want to be real, they're totally candid, there's a lot of really times where you get scared and you question, oh my gosh, did I do the right thing? Was this, you know, like, you know, I've got my girls to take care of, you know, all these different things. And a good friend of mine, Patty, I'll give her a little bit of a plug, but she, amazing businesswoman, phenomenal, like, mind for just life and philosophies, but especially business. She had let me know that, you know what, Harley, this is what you wanted. And, you know, building a business is not easy, you know, and you're being tested right now to kind of see how bad do you want it. And I'll say this, there are far more good days and great days than there are negative. And that's the biggest thing that I want to pass over with my daughters is I want them to feel that feeling of not having fear of going after what you need to go after. I don't want them to go, well, dad just played it safe his whole life and kind of died a quiet death, you know, so to speak. And I want them to go, man, dad went for it, like both feet. And I knew because I was doing this on the side and I also had my main job, you know, in grocery. And then I had this on a side gig. Well, it got to a point where the side gig started out producing the main gig. And then when I jumped all in, that's when things blew up to catering and people started hiring me for private chef gigs. My daughters were actually come and help me on events, which is fantastic, you know, and they sell the brand as well. And they're good little chefs. Like I can give them quick shorthand things and they go right for it. But I want them to know that, you know what, go for it in life. Because that's a big deal, man. So many people, you mentioned it earlier, that a lot of people don't go for it.
It's scary.
Yeah.
You know, because I was in the military before, got out, worked for Penske for a while, got into the electrical union, stumbled into real estate in my third year as an apprentice. I was actually working at the Kings Arena downtown.
Okay.
This is when I met my buddy Bobby and found out what he did. I was like, I want to do that, dude. But they tell you have a plan B.
Yeah.
So I finished up getting my journeyman license, and then I went in San Francisco in the union there, Local 6, and I was looking to make that jump. Well, just before COVID happened, I was like, hey, dude, I gotta go, man. I got in a car accident. I'd been thinking about leaving, and finally I left, but I didn't tell my dad. I told my mom and I told my brother, I said, hey, guys, I'm doing this. Don't tell dad. I want to make sure I can do this because he's going to play that safety net. And he did. Yeah. He did. I didn't tell him for 6 or 8 months because I knew he was a correctional officer down at Calapat State Prison for years. So he had that safety net. Hey, he's got his 9 to 5. He's got set salary. He could work overtime, make a little extra money if we want to go on vacation or anything like that. And I told him, he's like, son, you need to get back pulling wire when COVID's all over. You need to get your butt back in there. And I was like, Dad, I'm pretty good at this.
Good for you.
Right? And I can imagine as you're walking through this and you have mouths to feed. I don't have that. Yeah. Right? I have a dog. I have a fiance now, a beautiful fiance now. Right? Nice, so nice. It's got to be scary as raising a family and you're part of all of their life.
Yeah.
Right? And you got to make sure the lights are cut on. You got to make sure there's running water. They got to get to school. They got to have clothes that are clean, right? Yeah. Otherwise, these kids are rude out here.
Exactly.
You know, so totally can relate with how scary it can be.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
If you're gonna talk to your daughters later on, and they're working at a restaurant for somebody, and they're like, "Dad, I want to go do this."
Yeah.
They can just look at you and what you did.
Yeah. Well, and. You know, you'd mentioned, you know, you've got a fiance now, and my girlfriend has been absolutely one of the most supportive people that I've known, and she's just been such a great resource, and she gave me a really positive outlook to look at this, and you know, because everybody, even still to this day, I've been doing this now almost 2 years full time. Mm-hmm. And even then, I'll still get into my own head where it's like the feelings of imposter syndrome can kind of creep in, or if you're having a bad day, or like I overanalyze things. Mm-hmm. And she gave me this positive dose of reality. She said, look at how far you've come in a short amount of time, and look at how well you've done. And I think I get so focused on the goals and the next thing and the next big, you know, like landmark, like I want to hit this benchmark, I want to hit this benchmark, that it's kind of hard. She gave me that little stop and do an about face and look at how far you've come and look at the trajectory that you're going. She's like, every goal you're achieving. And it kind of was like a positive slap in the face, because it made me stop and think about it for a moment. And it was just such a great, refreshing feeling to have that. And I was just like, man, she is right. I do need to stop and think about that. But she's been an amazing resource. So, and just to have that kind of positivity around. And I've got like a lot of phenomenal people that have just been phenomenal support systems around me, just been those cheerleaders and given me the hard doses of reality and checked me on points that are like, dude, what are you thinking on this one? Let's think about this a little bit more. And those are the best friends, though, that give you the quality advice. Because I think even you and I, when we were first starting to when I was starting to cook, it's a personal thing, right? Because it's like, I got to figure out what you like. And I got to amplify that towards a lot of people. But I think you and I had open communication where you're like, Harley, I like this better than I like this. Then I customize it, and then you're going to get what you want. One of my, a really person that I very much respect, a good friend, Delaney, she was one of those ones that we kind of linked up and started working together a few years ago. And she had been one of the ones that just really gave me very real, candid advice, whether it's with business or fitness or different things along those lines. And I've always appreciated that, because if you're surrounded by a ton of yes men and yes women that are saying, oh yeah, no, everything is good. Everything is good. How are you going to grow from that? You're really not.
Right.
And it's the people that can kind of go, dude, I didn't like that meal. That was not, let's not try that one. I'm like, all right, let me look at that again and let's see if we can revamp that a little.
Wonderful, man. Yeah. I'm picking up something here. You have 2 beautiful daughters. You have a great relationship with the ex-wife. You have a wonderful girlfriend by your side. You've had Patty and Delaney, man. All positive women in your life helping push you forward, man. Yeah. Like that's incredible. I think it's important to have those relationships, those connections, man or woman. Like who's going to show up for you in the most trying times and help you figure out like, hey, your goals, this is what you said you're going to do. This is what you're actually doing. This is how far you've come, right? All this stuff hurts, and we're going to be here as a backbone, like a backstop for you to support you. And remember, keep the eye on the prize. That's incredible, dude.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's very true. And they always say that it's like, you can't be Lone Ranger on a lot of things. And I think I had to check a lot of ego along the way and just kind of go, all right, I do need a little bit of help here. I do need to ask for advice. And like, I'm stuck. And I think the big thing has been unbossing myself. So I heard that terminology like with Mel Robbins, and I've been saturating with a ton of podcasts and like constantly feeding, reading and all these different things. But podcasts are kind of my deal. And she had one where Mel Robbins was really talking about unbossing. And it's like you have to kind of rewire your mind because you're so used to like having a boss and asking permission to, hey, can I take a vacation? Can I do this? Can I do that? And it's a liberating feeling. But if you've always been having a boss, it's such a hard rewire for your brain to go through. I'm still going through that, but it's getting easier.
Yeah.
It's getting a lot easier and it's more exciting now, which is true.
That's awesome. Yeah. The unbossing yourself, like you got to be your own boss. Yeah. Like you got to wake up to your own alarm, wake up to your own schedule and say, all right, cool. How am I going to go this week? Okay, cool. Here's my 6-month goal. How do I get there?
Yeah.
Right. When I first started connecting with you, I think you had 2,000 or 3,000 followers.
Yeah.
And you're up over 20,000 just organically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And how many of those people are shedding positive light, ordering from you, setting up catering events and all that stuff? Like, how's that been for you, realizing like, hey man, you have a pretty big audience?
It kind of surreal, if I'm going to be completely candid. Like all of a sudden it's social media is so weird. It's such a unique game, and realizing that how big of a role that is in a lot of modern day business now, and like figuring out the algorithms and all those different things. But so many people have reached out, hey, it was a friend of a friend. Hey, Rich recommended me, or Bobby recommended me, or Chad, or, those guys are absolutely fantastic as well. And reputation's everything. And I think that that's a big part of this that I've been learning is the recommendations. And if you pump out poor quality food, then people are going to remember that. And there's too many other options out there in this world to be able to go, oh, if I don't like this one, I'm going to go to this one. And then also the other part is like, I'm not bullying people into ordering from me. It's, you know what? I understand life happens, and sometimes you go on vacation. Sometimes you got this going on, but they always come back.
Right.
And I think at the end of the day, it's not really about food. It's about the relationships that you're building constantly. And that's one of the biggest things I learned in grocery is, because I'm still in contact with connections and wineries and breweries and like specialty foods and different things along those lines. It's because I didn't burn those bridges with those people, because I made real connections with them. And you and I have talked about this, the power of authenticity. And if people are going to like believe you, I mean, you got to bring some realness to the game, like have some dog in the fight, you know, so to speak. And I think that that's just a big deal. I mean, with me, I'm a big dork at times, you know what I mean? I like my girls are comic book nerds like me and all those different things. So that's one of the things that we bond with. But, you know, I'm a very loyal friend. I'm passionate about what I do. I'm passionate about my people. And, you know, I'll be that one that if you need me in the middle of the night, I'll be able to hold and roll down for you. So I think people can pick up on that. People can also pick up on the car salesman.
Right.
Which is like repellent.
We see this on social media all the time. Like people are flexing this or flexing that, and there's no real authenticity. It's mostly this flash, right? Yeah. And they say all that shines isn't gold.
Yeah.
You know, you don't got to be the biggest, flashiest person or anything like that. Like you and I would talk on the phone for an hour at a time, just randomly on a Tuesday. Like, oh man, hey, what's going on in your world? Like, cool. A little bit about the food, right? And then, hey, what's going on here? And then stopping by, delivering food, and the game's on, right? And we're like, hey, dude, hang out and watch for a little bit. I know you got to run, but here, have a quick minute, and like, can I get you anything? Right? Like the authenticity. And I tell people all the time, man, you got to sit at the right table with the right people. And we see that in this world right now. And I think young people can listen to this and really fine tune who their friends are. If they're not supporting you, or they're not being real with you, or if you're talking behind everybody's back, what do you think they're doing to you? Right? If you're speaking negatively, right?
Yeah.
What do you think they're doing to you? Right? And then you hear, oh, everybody's fake. Well, you're talking to a mirror right now, right? And that's why I believe that you carry such a big torch in being authentic and being real, right? Like I've stopped ordering from you, right? And I'm going to come back. 100%, but it's like, hey, this is what's going on, man. I'll get back. Right.
And that's I think you said it best right there. Life happens. You know what I mean? And it's all about the relationships that you just continue to grow and build that are real and based in grassrooted and fundamental like authenticity. And I keep saying that over and over again, but it's so true though, you know, and I just think that that's one of the best ways to go about business and life in general. And these have been a lot of lessons I've had to learn, like a lot of humility, you know, going from like having teams of 100+ team members rely on you and all these different things to all of a sudden you're a one-person wrecking crew and then you're building something from scratch. Like it's crazy. And to see like the leveling up and doing the catering events now are absolutely they're hysterical because I say hysterical because I get a chance to cook for my audience in front of my audience and make that real-time connection in front of them. And I love them. They're so much fun because it's going to be a show when I'm there. And I'll engage with everybody and they're going to get some killer food. But it's at the end of the day, my heart is in this. And this is the first time in my entire life that I can say that my heart is all in and I'm excited to do it. Like at my core, I feel excited. And it's like, it's one of those things when you have that aha moment and go, okay, that's one of my purposes, you know, to be here to do this.
You found it.
Yeah.
And you found it in your 40s.
Yeah,
right.
At 44, technically, I'm 45 now. At 44 is when I found it. And you know, so you hear all these people saying, oh, I'm too old, just ride off into the sunset. You got your job, what you do is what you do, and then that's it. It was like a quiet death for me, man. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, they were good jobs, and it's zero disrespect to any of them. They taught me everything, and if it wasn't for those, it wouldn't have led me to this point. So I'm very grateful for them. But at the end of the day, if your heart's not fully into it, I'm willing to take that risk because the reward's going to be optimum.
Right.
And it has been. It's been like I've been busting my butt, but it's not luck. I mean, but I've been very grateful for this opportunity.
Exactly, dude. Yeah. And even if it doesn't work, you know how to reset and start over.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know? wish that upon you. I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
But even if it did, you're like, well, I gave it a shot. Cool. Next time I give it a shot, I'm going to be a little bit more prepared. I have a little bit more tools in the belt,
Yep.
a little more in the arsenal,
Yep.
right? I'm curious, man. You have these great people around you, these great women around you that are helping you out. Who are you connected with right now that's looking up to you that you're like, hey, this is what I can do. Here's how I can help you.
Well, it's really interesting because it's so funny that you say that too, because I've been getting now people like strangers that will reach on out and ask, hey, I'm wanting to get this started on up. How did you go about doing it? And it isn't until somebody asks you something that you kind of realize how the trials and errors that you've already gone through for like 25 years, whether it's grocery or the food or all these different things, or just personnel wise, how much you have in your belt, your tool belt. And then, as I'm talking to these people, I'm making sub relationships now and just kind of trying to build up next gens and kind of like, hey, well, this is something that I ran into, not coming from a perspective of saying you should do this or you need to do this, giving them real-time perspectives from what I've gone through and say, this might help. I went through this situation here, here, and here, and this was what the result was. Mm-hmm. And then asking a lot of questions and then really being mindful and listening to what they're saying. Because I think a lot of the old me would have been just waiting to talk. And that's just being totally candid. But now being a little bit older now and being able to sit back and kind of listen and letting them really get their voice out and hear their concerns and then going it.
Dude, that's so funny you bring that up. I was just at our top 20 event for our office, right? Top 20% of agents, we're going in and we're having a mastermind around the market and what's working, what's not working, all that. And it came up that one of our top agents was like, I used to be so good at open houses and I can't convert anybody. And I was like, hand up, that's me too. In my approach, this is what I found. Early in my career, I was killer at open houses. I had no idea because I didn't know answers to stuff, so I was just asking questions. Then I get that confidence boost. I was like, dude, I can close anybody. I can do this, right? I know how to help them. So before somebody would spit out a question, I was chomping at the bit to give them all the answers to everything they didn't have a question about. And so I would tail off. I'd be like, oh, well, why aren't they responding? Oh, they bought a house with somebody else. Why would that be? Well, I'm not asking the right questions to understand their specific scenario, right? Yeah. People will never remember what you do for them, and they'll always remember how you feel. And if you're over speaking, right, just shotgunning it, right, throwing it all at the wall, saying, okay, cool, grab what works. That's not how you relate. That's not how you make people feel good, right? We have 2 ears and one mouth. Like, listen twice. Yeah. Listen twice.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, listen twice. That's very true.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, I think back to my much younger years, like in my early 20s when I was personal trainer. I think it happened really a lot when I was a trainer when I was like 18, 19. And I would have somebody come on in and they would sit down with me. They'd tell me what their goals are. And I was already calculating how I was going to train them. And I wasn't even listening to what they were asking for. And until I had like a elderly lady tell me, she's like, are you listening to anything that I'm saying? And I went, and it was like, and I was like 18 or 19 at the time, but that was a good life lesson because it made me kind of go, oh, wait a minute, be in the moment, listen. And this is like, it's not something that just clicked. I mean, this has been a continual journey for me over the years and I'm still learning on it, but I think I'm a little bit better now or a lot better now than I was 18, 19. But it's so funny to hear you say that because I relate to that. I understand because you get excited about it. You're like, man, I want to do this. And
you get a little knowledge, a little confidence. You're like, oh, I got this. This is easy. Boom, boom, boom. And then all of a sudden the dust settles and there's nobody there to do a deal with. You're like, holy smokes, I got to figure out what just happened because I'm smart now. How did I do more deals when I was dumb, right? Just not really dumb, just not knowing everything, but it was asking the questions and tailoring everything specifically to that client.
Yeah.
Right? I tell my clients, right, hey, this isn't a one-time transaction. Like, I want to be here for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Right. If it's not me physically, at least my team, because they'll be under my watch, and how I can have them show up well for the client by asking great questions.
Well, and you know what? I heard this thing, and so I love Anthony Bourdain. You know what I mean? And I was a big fan of his books. Yeah, big fan of his books. And I remember there was an episode where it was one of his shows where he went to the French Laundry, and Thomas Keller was saying how he wants people, they're creating these amazing memories of the French Laundry experience. And he says he wants people to be able to like go somewhere else and say, that reminds me of the French Laundry. And I think what you're saying also is just a huge element, because you're talking about building that depth of a true relationship based on authenticity again. But it's memorable, and those people are going to remember, oh, that time I worked with Rich, he was amazing. And they'll say it with such confidence that when they recommend it to other people, they're going to be confident, because it's going to make not only them look good, but they're not doing it just for that. They're doing it because they know the relationship with you, and you will take care of them. And I think that is such a huge element of, I think, all things in business. That's how it's been working with my business, is I'm getting referrals from people that I've never met, and they're saying, oh, just because so-and-so is recommended, and then they try the food, then I've got them hooked, because I will back up. And this is not cocky, but this is like, I'm confident in what I can provide. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about how we've been raised in a culture of, if you're confident about what you do, you're almost taught to kind of go, no, be overly humble and kind of like disregard that. But I think that there's that fine boundary between cockiness and confidence. And I think it's good to kind of tote that line a little bit. You have to be self-aware to have gratitude and humility and different things along those lines, and not be, because I've met a lot of, some chefs can be a tendency to be overly confident.
And there's always that. Yeah.
But I think the humility aspect of it is definitely a big element of it. But the relationships, dude, and you're great at that, man. I've heard so many people speak so highly of you, and that speaks volumes to your consistency.
I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, the authenticity around who you are, that's why anybody asks for, meal prep or anything like that, Harley, every time. There's not another person in my Rolodex, if you will, that I'd recommend. And I've had several throughout the last 5 years or so that I was like, nope. Once I found you, I was like, that's it.
Nice.
Then I took it back. I had to cook for myself. I had different plans and all that. But that's why whoever I know that's like, hey, I'm looking for something, like, we have a family now, it's hard to cook all the time, so I would love to have my lunches or dinners scheduled out at least a few times a week. Well, it's Harley.
Yeah.
That's it.
Appreciate that, man.
I think you have a big light in this world. I think you treat people very well, not just clientele, but friends, right?
Thank you.
And when you're talking about authenticity, you could see that with how you raise your daughters.
Thank you.
And how you have that, co-parenting relationship with the ex, right? That didn't work out, but that doesn't mean the kids have to suffer.
Yeah.
I'm curious, man, where along your lines of growing up, like, who was the biggest role model for you and showing you how to treat people?
You know what? There's just been so many people over the years. Actually, I just went out to lunch the other day with my uncle, and my uncle really, and I was giving him props, like, as we were all sitting there just reminiscing in an old restaurant that my brother and my girlfriend and we were all like having lunch, and I started having all these floods of memories of lessons that my uncle, who was very much like another father to me, really taught me. I mean, he was the first one to get me into the gym right before I started playing football. He invested that time and showed me the discipline of like keeping your body strong and just really making fitness a priority. And going back to then, and he always cooked, and I was always around him. We played video games. It was the first time I ever played Legend of Zelda. It was like, just going back, that's how old school it was. But in so many other aspects, he was a good man, is a good man. And it's just taught me so many unbelievable lessons. whether he knows that or not, I had to kind of remind him and tell him these stories about how much, he's a phenomenal uncle and how much I love him. And you appreciate these things, I think, a little bit more. And it's so funny that you asked that question, because he and I were just talking about this. And I think it's about that paying it forward and not waiting until somebody passes. That was a big lesson for me. You're not promised tomorrow. And those people that you love and those people that you appreciate, you tell them in the moment, and you let them know. Don't hold on to it like it's like a pot of gold that you're going to eventually bank into. But if you lose them, they're never going to hear it. And I think there's so much more. But he was a huge, huge influence on me growing up.
I love that, man. Yeah. I love that. I have several great role models myself, and my grandpa being my best friend. And he loved to cook and all that stuff. The reason we talked about this, Niners, Giants, and Kings for me.
Nice.
We would sit, when I moved down there to Southern California with him, right, we would sit there and watch Barry Bonds smack home runs. And that's why I got this tattoo. I have 2 names tattooed on me. It's John and Joyce. It's my grandma and grandpa. Nice. And 1 firework for each of them. They passed away in 2014. And I always say, if I was half the man my grandpa was, I'd be a great man, right? He took on my father and his 4 siblings, my aunts and uncles. My real grandfather threw $20 at my grandma and walked out the door with a babysitter. And my adoptive grandpa was working at the diner with my grandma. The next day comes over with 5 bags of groceries for the kids. Said, "Here you go." Sells his awesome, I think he had a Mustang back in the day, black leather interior, like super nice. Sold it to get a station wagon so he can haul all the 5 kids around. You know what I mean? Like, when you shed that kind of light in the world, nothing could be dark, right? We have these trying moments. We lose our mom, we lose our dad, we lose our grandparents, we lose our closest friend. And those times suck. They really suck. They really hurt. And you can get caught in the dismal of that and say, well, this is going to crush me for the next 8, 10, 30 years. Or I can remember, give the people their flowers while they're here. Yeah. And cherish those moments, right? Those moments for you are monumental. And for him, he was just being an uncle. He was like, hey, I love this kid. This is my nephew. I'm going to show him the ropes up here. He probably doesn't even think about it. Yeah. He's like, hey, this is just what we did. And for you, you're 45 now. Yeah. And those moments are so cherishable that you're offering those to your kids and building this business together. Like, that's incredible.
It's so, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's so funny how like the people that come into your life, I'm a very firm believer in this, that everything happens in your lifetime at the precise moment it's supposed to happen to. And this falsified mindset of like, I can control everything at all times is kind of like an endless loop of disappointment, because nobody can control everything at every moment at every time. I think that me doing my jump and, whether it's the new business, things going on with the twins or life in general. Here's another funny thing. I just started working with a new trainer. His name is Rob, and he's got this whole workout plan, business that's all doing. This is his side passion gig. This guy, he's 20, I think 26, 27, and he's motivating me at 45. And I mean, it's like I'm the old man of the crew. Mm-hmm. But the thing is like, an old dog can still like learn new tricks. And the great thing is I'm getting great results with him. I've never not worked out, but this is like different. It's different levels of intensity, and I'm feeling great. You know what I mean? And I think this old mindset of, well, I gotta, hang up the cleats, so to speak. It's like, no, like 45 is the new 20, in my opinion, anyway. I'm going to choose to think that. Yeah. But it's just, you never stop learning.
Yeah. Well, if you keep your body right, you keep your mindset right.
Yeah.
40 is the new 20. Yeah. You just have all the experience, 2 more decades of experience, that your wisdom level's up here. So if you can pass that down and one person picks up on a couple things, you might be able to change their lineage. Yeah. By being the one, by sharing your wisdom, your knowledge right here. Okay, cool. You're 26. I'm 45. Love what you're doing. Hey, by the way, this is how I felt about this workout or this right? Help them tailor it to you,
Yeah.
but that'll give them extra tools later on.
Oh, totally, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that symbiotic, relationship. And it's so funny because there's so many versions of that, like constantly. And it's like you're plugging into one and having them plug into you. And then I just had a manager reach out to me and just talk to me about some old business stuff and like, hey, what's your thoughts with this? I'm like, well, this is what I see. And, but I was very flattered that she reached out to ask me that. This is years after I've been gone and years since we've worked together. So that's very flattering.
And that's the trail you leave behind, right? Like, is it burnt down?
No.
Or is it grown up in luscious trees and fruits and vegetables along the way?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how do you want to be remembered? And I think you do a phenomenal job of how you treat people, man. You show up really well.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, man. Yeah.
And because you do it all the time, every time, it is authentic. Right? People might meet you one time and be like, man, that guy's got a lot of energy. I don't know. But you for long enough, you're like, that's Harley, man. That's how he gets down. You can see it, right? Yeah. You see that smile. Every time we see each other, man, eyes light up, big grin, big hug. Like, hey, let's rock, bro. What's going on in your world?
Yeah. I do have a lot of energy, but I'm doing my best to channel it in all the positive ways.
It can go south real quick, right?
Yeah. Some people are like, dude, we need to catch up on the coffee before we get you around us right now.
Right. I totally understand, man. Well, I'm curious, dude, like, what is one book that you've read in your life that changed your world?
This was another great recommendation from Patty. It was called The Alchemist, and
great book.
Never heard of it before. It was one of the fastest books that I ever read. And she recommended it at a perfect time, and she's very smart. And she recommended that specific book because it was at the time where I was getting ready to make this jump into this new venture. And the entire book is just all about this journey of this young boy. I'm not going to give the synopsis on the book, but he keeps hitting challenge after challenge and how everything plays on out. And there was a couple lines in that book that really stood out to me. And the biggest one that stood out is when you want something bad enough, the entire universe will conspire to help you achieve it. And that's what the whole book is about. It's like, how bad do you want this? Your personal legend, as they talk about that throughout the whole book, your personal legend. And realizing that and knowing that it's not just a straight course. It's not always going to be like, oh, I want to be a chef. Oh, I want to have 4,000 clients by the end of this month. Doesn't necessarily hit like that. There's going to be these like, okay, I had to zigzag. I had to go this way. I had to go this way. But as long as your trajectory, you don't lose out on where your goal is. And that book really spoke to me in so many ways. In fact, I was just reading it again about a week ago and getting refired back on up. But I think it's just so key to really think about that. If you want something bad enough, the entire universe, it's energy, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of people can talk, and you and I have talked about this. A lot of people can talk a real good game and say, oh, I want this and I want this, I want that, but they're not willing to put in the work. I know what it feels like to have 400 orders, to have like that need to be done really quick, to have people call out on me. And I know what that grind feels like on pumping out phenomenal meals for people and having those responses. I also know those dark feelings of going, oh my gosh, I don't know. Can I make this work? Can I make this work? But you have to feel all those. You have to feel the lows and you have to feel the highs to appreciate every part of it. And that book spoke the most to me. So if anybody's looking for something and they're challenging themselves or questioning themselves, that book was my North Star and still is to this day. I mean, when I need that recharge, I'll flip to a chapter and then start it up.
You said Patty gave you that too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Patty's been
full
influential
of knowledge.
for sure.
Oh, yeah.
My buddy, Drew Scalaro, he moved back to Ohio a few years ago. He gave me that book. I was like, hey, man, I'm thinking about getting into reading, right? And he's like, here you go, try this one. And I was like, nice. Holy smokes. It is a fast read. It's hard to put down.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to put down. That is a great book. I definitely recommend it as well.
Yeah.
And last question for you, my man. It's been such a pleasure having you on, brother. I love you so much.
Man. You too, brother.
What's one piece of advice that you'd give anybody in the world today?
You know, the biggest advice I would give is don't let fear rule your world. Don't let fear overtake your mind from taking chances, big or small. I mean, failure is a part of life, and it's when you fail that you're going to learn. And as long as you're mindful of it, and I had an old coach tell me a long time ago, he said, think like a rookie, but play like a pro. And I like that mindset because initially when he told me that, I'm like, well, what do you really mean by that? He said, you know, when rookies kind of go in, you know, from the NFL, you know, from college, then they go into the NFL, they kind of have this mindset on like, I can do anything. Like I just got drafted. Yeah, they got to go through some bumps and bruises. But then when you learn to play like a pro, but have that mindset of I can do anything, but then you get the execution aspect of it down, you're going to start playing like a pro. So I would say don't let fear, because I lived in that realm for way too long in my life, kind of playing it far too safe, letting the fears of the unknown judge and dictate my actions. And you and I talked about this a little bit, the embossing process of it, but just realizing that, you know what, you can do it, go for it. And because plenty of times I've fallen on my face in this whole venture, and then hard lessons learned, but then I've always figured out a way to come back out on top. Always, every single time. And I'm sure I'll fall on my face again, you know, as I start going for bigger and bigger things, but I guarantee I'll figure it out. And that's the one thing that I'm saying with confidence in my heart, because it's happened, it'll happen again. I'm aware of that, but I'm still going to go for it.
Then you speak with conviction, my man. It's not about how many times you fall down, how many times you get back up.
That's that Rocky quote I like, man.
I love it,
That's
man.
a good one.
Well, thank you so much, Harley. I love you, bro. Looking forward to having you on again, and let's watch you grow. If you need to follow him on Instagram. It's PandaMomo05.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And we'll make sure his website's linked here. We'll see you again, brother.
All right. Sounds good, brother.